Hello everyone, I got to Mythic with MonoW and I'm gonna show you the deck and how it works, why I chose the cards I chose, and then we'll get into the matchups, okay? First of all, I've been playing best of one. It's not the most amazing Magic, but I've been building the deck on my own, so the more matchups I get, the better, okay? After all, the sideboard, I have more or less an idea, but I wanna focus on best of one here. Also, I have to say this is not better than Boros by any means. When I make a deck, or anyone, right? Really, when you make a deck in Magic, particularly in Standard, you're trying to answer something. My idea with this deck is that I'm not gonna get Boros. I'm not gonna beat Boros. But while Boros might struggle versus hard removal, particularly Rats, because one-on-one removal is not efficient versus Boros. While they might struggle there, right, there's gonna come up all these decks to counter Boros and have Rats, a lot of Rats main board. I'm gonna try to go a bit higher than Boros, and with Thalia, with every interrupter, fight those decks, right, that are being created to fight Boros. So yeah, Boros pretty bad matchup, almost insta loss, but that's why I can recommend this in the current meta. I mean that I got to Mythic and Diamond was kinda easy. And because the more meta the ladder is, okay, maybe not a low ladder, but the more meta the ladder is, all these people trying to beat Boros, one even interrupter against the Rats or a Knight to rebuild after some removal is just gonna beat these decks. It does well versus red, another matchup, well, big green decks, enchantments, all those green decks, right? Whether it's more aggro or a bit more focus on ramping, those are bad matchups. And also mid-range decks. The mid-range is not like you cannot beat it, okay? But it can be pretty rough depending on their hand because of the amount of big threats they have and how hard is to deal with them. Or if you don't deal with them, they're just kinda insta-1, right? Anyway, let's go into it. The Lunar Veteran obviously here on the left for the mono red, that is very prevalent, okay? The Novice Inspector, there is different options. I tried the Pyrexian that you can give Hexproof, but it's too slow. That type of card works well with Vial, right? Weather Vial, but without it, I don't like it that much. Then we have the Warden of Inner Sky here on the picture. Better versus creature decks. It feels like if you're tapping, you're not hitting, and believe it or not, 1 more points of damage sometimes makes a difference. Obviously, this is a very good card, very strong. It's strong versus Boros, it's strong even versus mid-range, because it's a threat that eventually gets out of hand. It's just that, again, my focus is a bit more versus control and big combo decks. And if I'm tapping, right? If I'm tapping, I'm not hitting that turn. And I don't have the explosiveness that Boros has. But this is another option you can consider. Instead, I'm running with a recruiting officer that it might not be as exciting, but because I have all these flash that I want to get into later, you can remain open with mana. You don't need to cast anything. You just draw a card, right? Cathar Commando. First I had 4 reinforcement. The reinforcement are pretty weak, honestly. In Boros makes way more sense. Even with the Knight of Ferran, the reinforcement sometimes feels bad. But it can be good to rebuild after a Wrath. Or just, to enable Knight Errant for Feos. The Cathar Commando is a bit like hits hard versus control. That is another threat. Like 3 power is a lot of power. And it's basically an answer to all these enchantments. Enchantments and artifacts, it can be the artifacts like mono blue. This mono blue or blue white control or artifact deck. It can be the red artifact that spawns, I think it's goblins with trample and they keep growing and growing. It can be the lockdown versus control. It can be versus red, the enchantments that are created after the pumping spells, right? These tokens that give +1/+1, one gives trample, one gives menace. If they attack with a menace 1 versus 1 blocker, you can just, flash this and block with 2, or you can remove the menace and +1/+1. It can be cool, right? So I think it's anti-enchantment is pretty well positioned in the meta. Vanguard mandatory. Ossifications I have 4, I could have 1 less here and 1 more Cathar, even though I'm gonna lose Cathar. But I'm pretty decent removal. Basically, 2 mana makes it very good in terms of tempo. With Thalia, it's a bit bad, but you know, you have the board, the enemy cuts a bit trade, you ossify, it's gone. Thalia, the best card, right? Again, the reinforcements are good. Templuthal Cathar is good removal. Again, it's about tempo, right? You have your drop 1, drop 2, enemy drop something. Then you have the Cathar and you have 3 guys on the board and the enemy has none. It's pretty good tempo. Then the Knight, that is very good card advantage. In that versus control, sometimes it's a bit too slow and you need to be careful. The Archangel Elspeth is a sideboard card, I would say, because I'm playing best of 1. I have 1 just to test it, but you could have a 4th Knight, honestly. And have the Archangel versus mid-range, for example, that maybe the Knight you cannot enable that many times. Or you can remove some of the Brutal Cathar, for example, for it. Then even Interrupter, it doesn't fit that well because all these are humans and this is not. But again, you just put a board, try to commit not too much, but enough that you have a good enough clock. And then an Interrupter is there to deal with any versus control with the rats, versus mono red with one of these big pumping spells to win 1 turn and win the race. I started just because I like the card, but honestly it's been surprising me so far, and I hope it has, with all these birds, some deck in the future set. Pure bird type of deck, okay, but just having this as value with another bird, the Restoration Angel bird, and then having some value bouncing can be good enough. Cavern of Souls to resolve Thalia, even on the draw, turn 2, pretty strong, honestly. Again, a deck that tries to beat control and combo control, right? While giving up a bit of the matchups against creature decks. Still, mono red is very good, okay? I could have some Field of Ruins, but the problem is they have an Interrupted over white. You have this with Field of Ruins, you can cast it. The second Cavern of Souls, you probably should name Bird, depending on the situation. Okay, and the matchup. But yeah, there is that. Things that will change. I'm interested in stuff. We could use something like Extraction Specialist. Okay, I think I like it a lot. It's just that it's gonna rotate. And I'm not gonna run it. I'm not gonna craft it and test it that much. But I've been considering it. It's a bit more... It's more anti-control and anti-mid-range. And I guess it could do well also versus mono red. So definitely a good try. Maybe, you know, maybe we could test it instead of the Even Interrupter and forget about the Grudge and just go for tempo and try to beat down the enemy. But I don't know, it just depends on the meta what you're facing, and that's another beauty of mono white and this type of winnie type of decks, right? You just can replace some cards here and there. But besides that, I'm very happy. I think the core is Thalia, the Vanguard, some sort of certification, whether it's 2 or 4. The Knight of Chaos, I don't even think it's mandatory. Honestly, it's Thalia, Vanguard, and that's pretty much, and the certification, that's pretty much the core. After that, you can go no Cutter Commando and maybe more 1-drops, or maybe you can go a bit bigger and get some Archangels, okay? But you can go with Adeline too. I've seen it being played in some decks. The point I have with Adeline is that you do turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, Adeline is great, you pop on a token, but doesn't have that much tempo play. Versus creature decks, again, is amazing, but I have one other focus that is trying to be control. Versus mid-range and control, yeah, you cast this, it's 3 mana, they can remove it very easily, or they rat you and then you cast this and it's just a 0-4, right? Or a 1-4 that you need to untap with it to actually get value. So on curve is great, and don't get me wrong, it's a good card, but again, I'm trying to go for a more tempo type of playstyle to beat control, but it's up to you. Definitely is on that flex spot. When I lose, well, it's in that flex spot, right? maybe you can remove the even interrupter and try to go more, have a better matchup against creature decks. But I don't think you're gonna win many of those. So that's why I wanted to focus on the control. You see, you really wanna go a bit faster and punch harder. Honestly, it's probably just better to play Boros. But we'll see in the future, because maybe with the rotation, I'm gonna need to change stuff. And then maybe we start to change this into a more human, multicolor type of deck. But that will be for another video, right? So we can go about the pros and cons of the deck. I like the deck because it can have a fast clock. It's one of these hate bears, white winnies, annoying creatures with the War, with the Talia. But it can have a fast clock if you do turn 1, turn 2 the Vanguard, or Talia, turn 3 the Vanguard. You know, can have very, very fast clock. Talia turn 2 is very strong in the format right now, whether it's control, whether it's mono red, and sometimes with this fast starts, if the opening is going a bit too big and it's a mid-range deck, Talia turn 2 can be very, very annoying, okay? I've been playing mono black too, and it can be very annoying. I mean, there is a lot of cut down in the format. War gains a lot of tempo because there is Talia in play with one War 1 from the Vanguard. Therefore, they can kill the Thalian sometimes, so they kill the Vanguard, but Thalia is still in play, so they need to, you know, use 2 mana, 3 mana to kill the Vanguard, on top again, kill Thalia, and by then you have a big board. So that's great in this current meta. Knight of Ranopheus is just an amazing card. Honestly, I was a bit hesitant from playing it, because you need to tap, and sometimes versus mono red is awkward because they gain menace, and you cannot blow just with one creature. Sometimes versus control is just too slow. But maybe that's why 3 is the right amount in this type of deck. Okay, this is not Boros, it's not that explosive, because it's just card draw. You can convoke for 3 small creatures and then hit with the big ones. It's great card draw, and not only you draw cards, you select which cards. Okay, it's a bit like a collected company. Obviously you don't put them in play, but you know, you can find the Even Interrupter, the Thalia, or the Cathar, the Brutal Cathar, depending what you need, right? And Even Interrupter, honestly, in this current meta is just perfect. I'm very excited because this bird is gonna stay for a while, and I love it. Okay, in a lot of matches, mid-range is very bad because, again, tempo versus mid-range deck don't tend to work that well because they have a small, efficient spells, so it's very hard to get them with tempo. It's more about either going wide and beat down, or trying to grind a little bit with card advantage, so their 1-for-1 removal is not that efficient, and then with dosification remove their threats. But I'm very surprised by this card. Okay, then we go into the cons. There's a lot of them. Again, I don't recommend the wheel. You need to buy and pay for the cards in MTG Arena. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's to something that is cool and honestly can teach you how to play very good Magic. I think it's great deck, because Boros sometimes feels like you have your hand of 7 cards, you just spit it, and if it works, it works, if not, it doesn't work, right? Feels a bit like a combo deck. Obviously, great players will find ways to be more resilient, but to me, it feels a bit like that sometimes. And with this mono white, while it's not as strong, it suits my playstyle way better. In any case, a format is full of mid-range in one way or another. 3 colors, 2 colors with green, black, or maybe some people splashing white, right? Or I've seen some Esper. There's not particularly bad matchups, some of them, because they go way too big. But I mean, they do turn 1 removal, turn 2 removal, turn 3 threat. It can be very hard to beat. A lot of one converted mana cost removals, like cut down. So Thalia, even that, you know, you need to pay 2 to kill Thalia. When you are on the draw, can be very, very rough if they have the 1 mana removal. A lot of Boros in the format. That means a lot of people is ready for Boros. 3 mana rats, 4 mana rats, 5 mana rats from all colors: blue, red, red only, mono black, white, of course, the color for rats. A lot of anti-creature hate because of Boros, and you eat that hate. The thing is that what I'm trying to do, while you eat that hate, you have an interrupter, you have the Thalia, you're trying to, you know, to go a bit under that and be a bit more resilient than Boros, and it works well for that. But still, sometimes when they do turn 2 turn 3 Wrath, turn 4 Wrath, turn 5 Wrath. It's just, you cannot win there, right? So it can be very frustrating. Meta is very diverse. I had actually more problems in Platinum rank than in Diamond because of this fact. When meta is very diverse, and anti-meta build that is a bit more like anti-control, anti-combo, anti-specific combos that like milling or combo that is reanimator that are very, they're controlled for a big part. It's just they have a small combo as a win con. This deck works very well, but the meta is very diverse. I've seen a lot of mid-range vampires, mid-range rogues, mid-range everything, right? In the ladder, and obviously this deck versus that meta struggles a lot, okay? But as you get higher, the deck gets better because the meta is clear. You have mono red, Boros, and all these mid-range decks that tend to be black-green. I think is the best option. And then you have the big decks that are control, meal control, or combo control, and that it works very well versus those big decks that are pushing the others away, right? While at the same time being very good versus mono red. A lot of big creature decks. I was talking about mid-range before, but there's some special mid-range that is like just green ramping creatures with dinosaurs, right? Green red that also have rats, angels that have rats. I've seen a lot of patterns in MTG Arena. Maybe I make a video about that, about how many people have rats in that creature decks. Big angels that are not big problems sometimes because they put a 5-mana angel, a 4-mana angel, and it's what we were talking before. You do ossification for 2 mana, and the tempo gain is just so big that you can win just out of that. But they can have black, white, and have removal, rat, being angel, and it's very hard to beat sometimes. Getting into the matchups, combo control, I was talking about, is the best one. How you play this is you try resolving with Cavern of Souls, Thalia, the Vanguard, maybe a couple of 1-drops. Don't overcommit too much. The 1/1s that gain life are cool because when they die after a Wrath, it is not exile. It can come back and 1/1, and if it's just a 1/1, it can be very annoying versus control. So try to make a threat that you can say, okay, this is good enough. I can more or less with this damage and maybe some flash creature in some turn. With this, I have enough clock. Don't overcommit, okay? Then you need to force control to tap in their own turn. How you do this? Well, first with the big threat, you're gonna make him want to tap in their own turn to Wrath. Then you have your flash creatures that can come in and be annoying, right? Because when they might think when we untap, we're gonna do Aven Interrupter, we're gonna do something else, some trick that is gonna make him impossible to get rid of the threats we present. So by forcing them to tap in their turn, right, we can just untap and cast whatever we want and have a bit more freedom. Elspeth is great post-Wrath, or also, you know, if you force them to tap, because you're gonna cast Elspeth with the Planeswalker, the 4-mana Planeswalker, with Cavern of Souls. So if you can just bait a Wrath and then Elspeth and +1/+1/+1, and you can ultimate, and you bring all the creatures back. It's pretty strong. Not also versus control, but also versus mid-range. I like it here a lot, and maybe it's the future for mono white in this type of creature, okay? Just bringing back the creatures with that, because by having an Elspeth, all of a sudden the clock is on them for them to make a move. Otherwise, the ultimate tends to be GG. Also having Bird in Cavern of Souls, right? Naming Bird. First you name human, obviously, resolve Thalia and Vanguard, but you have a second Cavern of Souls, or you resolve the Thalia and then you draw the Cavern of Souls. Maybe you want to name Bird in case they have like Wrath plus Negate, or Wrath plus... Negate wouldn't hit it, right? But Wrath plus some other counter, pay 2, right? No more lies. There's some counters that can hit. Some people that are using counter spells against creatures. So having very Cavern of Souls can be good sometimes. So the Aven Interrupter cannot be counter, okay? Also, as I said here, versus Thalia, just to protect Thalia, sometimes can be good. Because they are removing Thalia turn 3, turn 4. It might mean that they don't have a Wrath. Or the Wrath is very expensive, like 5 mana with Thalia 6 mana. So if it's turn 4, might be worth to just Aven Interrupter to protect Thalia, right? Because then you gain turn 5, and then by the time it's turn 6, they might be dead already. The Cathar Commando can be good, end of their turn, okay? you cast it, and we go back here to force them to tap on their own turn. Obviously, better you have the Cavern Souls, right? You do end of turn, and they use Lockdown for 4 mana versus your Talia, your Vanguard, and a 1-drop. You commando, and the gain in tempo you win here is very insane. You want to save at least 1 night of errands, okay, before overcommitting too much. Just to reveal with some reinforcements, some flash creatures you cast after a Wrath, just to reveal. And it's sometimes they don't, right? They have counter turn 1, removal, Wrath, some draw spells that are pretty mediocre. And if they Wrath, sometimes they feel like they won already, but you reveal with the Knight, with the reinforcements, maybe you get an Enemy Interrupter out of the Knight, and you're gonna win from that. In the case of Mono Red or Gruul Aggro, honestly, Gruul Aggro I haven't seen that much. Can be interesting. I've seen more Mono Red. It's a good matchup, I would say, because of the life gain and Thalia. Don't be afraid to take early damage, okay? Going down to 10 early on because these pump spells is fine. Try to develop the board. Right, have enough board so you can start having favorable tradings, blocking with your creatures. Now, Eran is a great blocker, but you need to be careful. You just overcommit too much, right? Sometimes it's fine to do the Eran of Eos for 2 to get another Thalia, or to get 1-drops. So you can block with that and another creature you want to sack. Because if you overtap, they're gonna give menace to the creatures, and you're just gonna get the 1-shot, right? Thalia is only good for blocking, for power 3 with a Vanguard. Because with power 3, it goes through 1 progress, right? But also it's good because of this insane, like, with Thalia in play, it's very easy to know what the opponent can do, because they have only enough mana, right? They have 3 mountains, that is very common. They have mana for 1 spell. So all of a sudden, I mean, they plot, they can have 2, right? Plot is sorcerer speed, so you can really tell what the opponent is gonna do. So yeah, you can block very well, Thalia, and it's very key to protect her. You aren't going to block with the 1-1 and gain life, for example, is the best example of this, because what's the 1-1 gonna block because it's Mono Red? Nothing, right? Might as well attack and gain some damage, 1-2 damage, you never know. It's a race, and you kinda wanna get as much damage as possible, because you might never know when it's gonna be relevant, right? Every Interrupter is key, because how it works, every Interrupter is, it comes down whenever it's on the stack, becomes plot. That means it cannot be cast that same turn. And all of a sudden, because of the text of any Interrupter, it costs plotted spells cost 2 more. Okay? Mono Red plots a lot. It has the enchantment, and it has the 1-2, right? So every Interrupter is very key, because sometimes what they do is they plot the 1-2, and then they try to cast some other spell. You can even interrupt that other spell, or just to protect Thalia, and it's gonna make the 1-2 cost 2 more, and the win on tempo is often enough that you just win the game, because they've spent 2 mana to plot the 1-2 just to cast it, and then cast some spells over it in the same turn, right? That's what they do. It's like a lot like a combo deck, or like a 1-turn, 2-turn type of aggro deck where it's just pumping everything. Well, you have an interrupt on something that 1-2 is gonna cost 4 mana, and obviously that's super expensive. You're gonna have enough tempo to win game, because your deck is fast enough to do so. Going to Mono Black, Black-Green midrange, a bad matchup. Thalia is not even that good. You just want her, to win maybe 1 turn, then tapping on turn 3 just to kill Thalia. Usually happy with that. Try to build what Mono Black and Black-Green tends to do is they have 1-for-1 removal, and then very efficient threats to try to build a very, very wide board. Some people run this 3 mana Wrath. It's hard to play around that, and at the same time build a board versus Black. It depends how they're playing. Be aware of them, but I don't think you can play much around them. Say removal for the big threats, say Aldred or the Bad God. Don't use this on anything, because most of the things you'll be able to block. It's annoying, okay? The threats are very good. We have the Black-Green 3/3 first strike dead touch. It's very hard to get rid of that one. Sometimes you're forced to chump blocks so they don't draw. But try to save the ossification just for the big threats. Sometimes the Cathar is fine just to throw on a vampire, on a bat, or on the 1/1 bat just to get back the spell. But justification, because it's harder for them to remove it since they're black. Even with green, they can have some anti-enchantment or the 3/3 I was mentioning. It's fine, no? It's better just to save the justification for the big threats to make the last push, right? Use flash to surprise the enemy. Sometimes I have Thalia in play, and I say go, and they cast Liliana, right? And then they do -2, and I do the 1/1s and just sack the token. It's very good tempo play, or blocking with Even Interrupter versus the bat. You have very few blockers, because the 1/1 bat can't really block, right? They can cast the 2/2, some of them, like a pseudo Dark Confidant. They have the 3/3 with War, discard a card, but it's just a 3/3, so your creatures get big enough to surpass that or to force some block. So, or just a trade. So by them having very few blockers, sometimes you can attack with everything, even that you're gonna lose your 1-drop or your 2-drops. Is try to keep the vanguards alive, because that's the one giving you a lot of damage, right? But try to sneak as much damage as you can, because sometimes they rely on removal that pays life, or you rely too much on removal 1/1. I don't have enough time to beat you and cast all the spells in their hand, particularly with Thalia and the War from the Vanguard. So try to get as much damage as you can, because at the end you might just attack with everything, and when they have a couple of blockers, it will be lethal, right? Versus heavy removal enemy hand, try playing a bit slower, play Thalia, try to set up a Knight of Chaos, draw some cards, start attacking just with the Knight of Chaos to see what they do, and don't hesitate from just drawing from the officer end of turn, so you avoid some discard, because even in they can have the 4/5, right, children and shit like that. You play slow and you try to draw more cards. Eventually they're gonna draw out of premium removal, and you can just fill up the board with the attackers and win that way. Then we have Boros, unplayable matchup. Honestly, I don't know if I have 90% loss. Maybe not 90%, but it's awful, okay? Thalia is just a blocker versus X2, and because they have like 10 of them attacking at times, it's not even that good. Can delay their enchantment, but some versions don't even play that one. The +1/+1, right? Enchantment, they play the other one that is a removal, and then when you attack with 3 creatures, it's +1/+0. It's better, and it's also 2 mana. Granted, with Brutal Cathar, to start removing tokens and shit, is probably the way to go in this matchup, in that sometimes you just don't have enough time. Even Interrupter is honestly not that good, but can prevent the 3/2 haste +1/+0 when it enters the battlefield. Even though that normally Boros is explosive, that sometimes you don't have the tempo or the time to even hold 3 mana to cast the Even Interrupter. But Interrupter works here very well with the Brutal Cathar, because you flip the Brutal Cathar by not casting anything on your turn, right? It turns into a 3/3, it can block very well because it has first strike. The opponent casts something, you Even Interrupter, you untap, you cast 2 spells, and you keep going, right? But it's very bad matchup. Just, don't dodge it. Just, don't find anyone with it on the ladder. That's more or less it. I hope you like this type of video. I could mention some other matchups. There's some infected decks going on, the dinosaur decks. But I think these are the main ones. And I don't know, I like the deck. I hope you guys like it too, and like this video. And I'm trying to get to Mono Black. We're starting to get the spoilers. I'll make a video about that too. And I can't wait for the new meta. This is like a kind of old meta already, but I'm introducing the Even Interrupter that is going to be very relevant in the future for this type of archetype. So I thought it was very interesting to talk about this. I hope you liked the video. See you in the next one.